esteemed panelists.
Can we sit or do we have to stand?
Oh, no, you got to wait until I say.
I may take a seat.
Yeah, go on.
So thank you.
You're
Thank
okay.
you.
You all know me already, and Mark, but I'll just ask, starting with Robin, over on the left there, just to introduce yourselves. I mean, we have some pretty esteemed faces, but just in case anybody is a first-timer and doesn't know who you all are and why we have you up here on stage today. So, Robin.
Okay, yep, shall I kick off? Yeah, good morning. Robin Wilson, Head of Manufacturing at Innovate UK. This is a UK government agency. We're an organization of about 250 people. We've been in place for just coming up to 10 years now. So the job we do, in technology readiness level terms, TRL 3 to 6, in the UK we have a very big research councils organization, and then we have businesses to commercialize research. And we have a bit of a gap in the middle. And our organization, Innovate UK, uses government funding for networking, for collaborative R&D projects to try and help bridge that gap. Some people call it the Valley of Death. We have thousands of projects running across health and life sciences, infrastructure, energy, manufacturing and materials, digital, a whole range of areas, and we operate with the European funds, and we do some international collaborations as well. My own area, manufacturing, so we look after processes including additive manufacturing, but there's things like composites, the basic metals processes of casting, machining, industrial biotech. So additive manufacturing, for me, has been of a particular interest in my 8 years with Innovate UK. My background is engineering. I did an engineering apprenticeship in the UK back in 1970, probably before many of you were born, and then moved into the car industry. And in the early 90s, we were making rapid prototyping parts for a Land Rover model, and the change that we were able to achieve by proving the digital model with some physical rapid prototypes. And ever since then, I've thought, wow, this technology is just so good. Coming into Innovate UK in the last few years, seeing the challenge from taking it from prototypes and tooling also into end-use production or series production. 8 years ago, that was looking like something that, yeah, probably could happen. Well, it has happened. We know it has happened. But there's a big step to make it happen effectively, reliably, cost-effectively. How we see it at the moment, it's in a kind of niche area, a few niche areas, and the big question, how broadly can this go? We think it can go a lot further than it has already. Walking around the show yesterday, I was just overwhelmed with the range of new product coming through, the enthusiasm, etc. I better stop. It was just supposed to be an introduction, I think. So that's what I'm here for. Thank you very much for inviting me to be on your panel today. The UK is here. A number of our companies are here exhibiting. I'm pleased to see that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're done, Robin. I'm Todd Grimm. Small company, just one person. It's myself, T.A. Grimm & Associates. I classify myself as a consumer of information in additive manufacturing, and hopefully present that back out to individuals and others from the stage. Pride myself on pragmatism, so cut through the hype. But this is a 27-year passion project for me. I congratulate SME for all of its involvement in the industry. I've been actively involved with it through its organizations and committees, involved with RAPID. So yeah, back to passion project. It's about, I consider this industry my baby. I got in early, and I want to see my baby grow up, be healthy, and do great things. And so that's kind of my position. Thank you.
And Mark,
I've already introduced myself, Marcado Lear. I'm a research director for Deloitte. I lead the teams that take on our research around what we would call Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, digital manufacturing, and most importantly in this context, additive manufacturing. So we've been at this a while. We're very interested in, as Todd suggests, seeing this industry grow. We think it's going to play an important role in digital manufacturing, and we're going to do what we can to drive it forward.
Thank you.
I'm Graham Tromans, like Todd. I'm a one-man band. I'm a consultant in this industry. I've been in the industry 27 years. I had the first machine, SLA 500 in the UK for Land Rover. And indeed, I was making parts for Robin when Robin was at Land Rover. I worked for Land Rover for best part of 37 years. I set up the facilities there, set up 3 facilities overall with the movement and the buyouts that we had. I worked with BMW and setting facilities up, and Jaguar. So my background is a lot in the automotive industry, and seeing where we could apply these. Certainly in the early days, there was an awful lot of shall we say, reticence to use these systems because CAD designers, car designers in those days, they didn't produce the CAD data that we needed to run the machines. So it was a big education program. Excuse me. It was a big education program that I had to sort of drive through into Land Rover and convince them that if they did a little bit more work on their CAD design, then I could produce parts really, really quickly for them. And it was a long, long journey. And it's going to be a long, long journey for some people here who are going to try and integrate these processes into their companies. So, but stick at it because it's really worth it.
Thanks, Graham. And if you were wondering, the choice of panelists is also due to getting a good selection of accents in there to make sure you guys are really having to pay attention to what's being said.
You hear all right.
So yeah, the title of this panel session is "So Where Do We Go From Here?" And initially I was going to put together a little synopsis of all the updates that we saw on the show floor over the last few days to give a recap for the panelists, for myself and for you. But once I got down to about 12 or 13 last night, I realized this was going to take up the whole of the panel session and Terry's keynote and probably some more as well. So what I will do is just run through very quickly, and I'm not claiming that this is going to be a complete list, and I may have missed something, and if I have and the panelists would like to correct me, please feel free to do so. But over the last couple of days, we have seen Desktop Metal, which I'm pretty sure you all know about what they bring in with their new processes. We've seen Syntavia with a new manufacturing plant, which was announced here. SABIC have got some high-performance FDM plastic grades. German RepRap have launched a liquid additive manufacturing technology. Paxis, obviously, with their wave process. Stratasys announced their continued partnership with Desktop Metal and their continuous build 3D demonstrator. Inert had a depowdering enclosure for additive manufacturing systems. Impossible Objects have their Model 1 flagship printer. Aleph have their first open source hardware filament. 3D Systems announced the Project MJP 5600, 2 software programs and 2 new SLA materials. HP, and you can see now why I couldn't go into much detail on all of these. HP announced their scale-up and further commitments to the industry. Black Belt is one that wasn't actually here, but broke on the first day, which is a kind of FDM printer on a conveyor belt for long parts. Formlabs have their post-processing machine that they've unveiled. Materialize have their build processes for 3D Systems machines. Creaform have an updated VX Elements. Volkmann have a AM materials handling system. And VisionTech have 7 new materials and updates to their Factory 4, and they're all things that we've seen or heard about for the first time here at RAPID TCT. So there's a lot to go at there, chaps. And I guess the first question from me is, what have you seen on the show floor the last few days? And I appreciate that some of you haven't been here for the whole time, that has really impressed you. What's been the thing that stood out the most for you? And I guess we'll start from this side this time. We'll start with Graham.
Wait, Jim, can I take that first? Because I'm not going to answer the question. I'm sorry to hijack the conversation.
Usual.
I'm not going to answer what I saw that was most impactful and most exciting, because it's my position that that decision should be yours, yours, and yours. My opinion does not have bearing on your operations, so I really suggest that you filter what's most impactful and what can take you forward through your own requirements with a little mind expansion too, rather than taking my word for what I felt was most impactful.
Well dodged on the first question. Thank you, Todd.
And Jim, we need a little help. The echo is so bad we can barely hear you, so you may have to turn and talk to us too.
Okay. I also have to turn that way for the camera because it says so just there. Look. Graham, if you would you answer the question?
Yeah,
Thank you. What have you found most impressive on the show floor?
Just to let you know, it's usual for Todd to cut me out, so that's pretty standard. I'm used to that. Okay, so I had to make a few notes. I haven't spent a lot of time on the show floor because RAPID and TCT have kept me really busy doing other things. So I have spent some time, but things that really stuck out in my mind is the continuous build 3D platform from Stratasys. I like that. I think that's moving towards manufacturing now with the way that the parts are built. I was very impressed with the winners and possible objects with what they're doing, giving you capability to use real materials and produce parts using those materials that you can't really do any other way. Desktop metal, obviously, what a great technology. But the area that really stood out for me was the area of the easy support removal. You know, as an industry, and anybody who works with metals realizes how difficult it is to get rid of those supports. And to be able to just break those supports away is a major step forward into getting sort of metals more accepted. One of the areas that, as an industry, I believe that we do struggle on is post-processing. How do we automate post-processing? You know, if we're going to move towards manufacturing, we don't want to take a part off a machine and hand clean it. We need to post-process it properly. And one of the companies that struck me with their automated post-processing and support removal was the company post-processing. I think there were some very novel ideas there. I have seen their technologies before, but I was impressed at the way that it had actually moved forward. On the materials side, I mean, we've seen lots of the big manufacturers producing their materials and that. But one company that really stood out to me was HRL Laboratories with their photopolymer resin that goes through, when you heat it, it goes through a phase change and gives you some ceramic type of material which will withstand about 1700 degrees. And I think that's a really good area because ceramics is a very important area of this. Another important area as far as materials are concerned is the control of the quality of the materials that actually go into that machine. Things like LPW with their powder life process, which controls the powder, the quality, monitors it, and automatically pumps it back into the machine. So once you've got your powder and your materials, you're not physically handling it and maybe putting contamination within that. There's so much down there. There's so much on this, on the show floor. It's really difficult to highlight. Those are just some of the things that stood out. A lot more stood out on this for me, but yeah, I could take hours. So
it could, yeah. There is plenty down there. Mark, was there anything for yourself that really stood out?
Well, before I say anything, I want to make a plea. I've just broken my glasses, so if anyone can print up a pair while on, I would really appreciate that. So I don't know if those are going to work. I think I'd answer in two ways. One is, and I understand that I'm biased, but literally the coolest thing that I've seen in the last few months is the DTAM, the Digital Thread for Additive Manufacturing demo that we've done with Siemens PLM. It's remarkable to see the end-to-end vision of digital manufacturing, distributed manufacturing, using additive. I think it's quite impressive. Stepping off of my biased platform, I've been really interested to watch how a number of different organizations are attacking the speed problem. One of the classic challenges of additive manufacturing, everybody's, oh, it's slow. Now, I think that from a value perspective, you have to look at latency in the supply chain before you declare something to be slow, because your ability to distribute takes a lot of that latency out if you can produce on demand. But what I have to admit that I hadn't seen 3 or 4 years ago is the ability of companies to attack the speed problem by disaggregating what I now think of as the 3 Fs of 3D, which is forming, fusing, and finishing. And to look at how organizations, some companies are saying, we're going to focus on forming fast and then fusing later, as opposed to forming and fusing at the same time. And then Graham, to your point, thinking about how is it that, finish is, when I say finish, I'm thinking about removal of supports, polishing, machining, what have you, to figure out ways to accelerate those processes, either by varying the forming process or employing some other factor. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolution continues, how different companies approach the rearranging or the sequencing of, in particular, forming and fusing, and the point at which they decide to engage in finishing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I took your question as what technology or company. So I want to, the philosophical, or the hidden things is where I want to focus on. One thing I like that is having a big impact on all of us, the industry and us as individuals, that you don't necessarily see on the show floor is this new attitude towards partnership. Mm-hmm. To try to tackle additive manufacturing in an attitude of, we are going to do it all, is absolutely ludicrous. So you're seeing, Deloitte's mentioned some partnerships, and SAP and Siemens, many companies from many different aspects coming together. So I would suggest that beyond a startup or a small company, if you're looking at a company that has a larger footprint and wants to play a bigger role in what you're doing, look towards those companies that are open to partnership, because if they think they can do it all, they're probably going to fail on some things, because everyone has a core competency.
Absolutely.
Focus on that. The other thing is a word of caution. Graham asked me why I didn't have HRL in my What's New presentation. I said, well, Graham, remember, I reported on it last year in What's New when they actually announced it the first time. So the word of caution is I want you to be excited about what's being presented here at RAPID, but also maybe demonstrate some patience, because it takes time to move from, we've got proof of concept through beta, through alpha, through commercialization. So don't set your sights on something you saw today being fully baked and ready to rock and roll and be productive tomorrow. Bake in some patience in your planning, in your road mapping, in your additive manufacturing strategy.
Sound advice. And Robin, obviously you had a few hours yesterday to try and cover.
Thank you. Building on a bit of a theme, really, I think, that's coming across. What I observed going around the exhibitions is quite a number of stands which are concentrating on the equipment and the peripheral processes, be it pre-processing or post-processing. From what we've seen from some of the projects we've funded over the last few years, if I give you a quick little anecdote, in 2010 and 11, looking at applications for grant funding, and this is typically a project which might be a collaboration of 5 or 6 partners, £400,000 or £500,000 of grant, maybe £1 million over 3 years. Those projects were all coming in saying additive manufacturing is wonderful, it's going to do all these things. Invariably, they quoted the Bible, Mr. Waller's report of the year, as to how big the market would be, and that's been pretty true. But they were all concentrating on the core process. And after one of the competitions, I was talking to some of the team, and they said, the trouble is, this also has some issues around the pre-processing, the data, the build support removal, and the post-processing. Certainly in the metals world, there's a lot of work and a lot of bench work still. And somebody mentioned the word, the dirty secrets of additive manufacturing. So the next funding call we did, and this is 2013, we actually put in print, we would welcome grant applications to address some of the dirty secrets of additive manufacturing, including pre-processing and post-processing, and we listed some of them. And you know, almost all of the grant applications and projects had a significant piece of effort on pre or post or both processing. So what really pleased me yesterday coming around the show was to see that this is being taken head on by the industry now, whether it's through partnership, whether it's seen as part of a digital thread, which I think is also part of that story. So some amazing new technologies I saw for the first time yesterday, and some of them already been mentioned. I won't go over them again, and I don't want to kind of single out which ones I think's good or bad, because I don't really know. I think they're all pretty good. They all seem to have a different place. That's what I'm beginning to see, is that, you know, this process with this material is probably going to be best for that kind of set of applications. We, as a funding agency, are particularly interested in end-use production. I don't think it would be appropriate to use government money in the UK, probably not here either, for sort of prototyping, which we could consider that's a kind of done deal, although there's new equipment and new techniques coming through. What we do see is the range of capability of our manufacturing companies. I speak for the UK, I don't know if it's the same here in the States, where you have the few that are really good and have really taken on the new technology and the new processes, but a lot who haven't yet got there. Now, I know everybody in this room is absolutely sold on additive manufacturing and 3D printing, and there are a lot of other people also aware of it. But I see a lot of companies who still haven't really got rapid prototyping or even rapid tooling, let alone using this technology for end-use parts. So what I saw yesterday is we got the whole range of new capability in rapid prototyping, tooling, and coming in for end-use parts. I think the most interesting thing is to get the end-use, the direct production parts, get that right, so that it can seriously compete with conventional manufacturing processes, most of which have been pretty well refined for 50 or 100 years. And the productivity issue of additive manufacturing in some of the cases is certainly still an issue. If you take the overall thing. And I saw yesterday one particular company claiming 100 times faster. Well, that's great. Just go and deliver it. Just do it. So absolutely, yeah, fantastic stuff here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's interesting to note the talking about prototyping, because for me, going back to what I said earlier, back in 2010 when I first went to RAPID in Anaheim, there was so much more prototyping and so a lot less talk of manufacturing, additive manufacturing end parts. And today it seems that 99% of what is being talked about is manufacturing, proper manufacturing for end parts. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here, but what do the panel think in terms of, are we setting ourselves up for a bit of a fall the way we are talking about these technologies as manufacturing technologies today, or do you think it's necessary that we do so to continue driving the developments? And any one of you can take that if you'd like.
I think it's necessary. The opportunity, this is our perspective, the opportunity that additive manufacturing presents to change the way we manufacture and deliver, because we think that plays a big role to deliver products in the right place. I'm a supply chain guy, in the right place at the right time at the right cost is pretty fundamental. There is huge value, it's clear, there's huge value, and there has been huge value in using additive manufacturing for prototyping and for tooling. That's terrific. When we talk with our clients, and in particular, we're doing a fair bit of work with the Department of Defense, which has if anyone thinks they've got a supply chain challenge, go talk to the DoD. I mean, they've got a massive challenge that they're fighting literally to increase readiness and manage sustainment. And there, it's just about the supply chain. It's not about all the sexy new products. It's about how do I manage sustainment in a globally distributed supply chain. That requires production capability, not fancy design at this stage, just production capability, distributed manufacturing, or products creating new products, and that's all the classic, fuel nozzles or medical devices that are things that are impossible and impractical to produce any other way that will lift standards of living around the world. So in each of these areas, additive manufacturing has a really important role to play. I think, Robin, what you said about observing that there are some companies that are far ahead. There are organizations that are industrializing these technologies. We know them, right? And the question, I liken it to, golfing, right? And one of my colleagues advised me not to use this metaphor, but I think that it fits. That, I can watch the Masters and see people using the same clubs that I have and the same ball that I have, and they even look a little bit like me, yet they can drive that ball 300 yards down the middle of the fairway and I can barely get off the tee. And Rob Gorham at America Makes can confirm that I can barely get off the tee. The difference is capabilities, right? How is it that we are enabling these technologies beyond simply the machine? And those are the issues that we think we got to address.
Yeah. Jim, if I may can I, Graham? Yeah. Build off, setting up for I'm going to just steal it, but setting up for I think there is a real possibility to set people up for a fall. Additive manufacturing is real, it can be used for production. My concern is that everyone that's not the size of a Fortune 1000 and doesn't have the resources to overcome the hurdles that we have and change structure, if they are led to believe that this is something tomorrow and it's looking rather easy, expectations have been set absolutely incorrectly. So I prefer to work with small and mid-sized enterprises, and those are the guys I'm concerned with. Off stage, so I've heard many very positive messages from the stage, and I believe them, but in talking with the people afterwards, it's like, okay, let's talk truth. Are you really there as close as you gave us the impression from the stage? And in most cases, almost 100% of the cases, is we're almost there. We still have some major stumbling blocks to get over. So that's the message I want to get. I want to keep you enthusiastic. I want you to be looking for that bright future. And the other thing coming from the stage is, as long as you change your mindset. If you want it exactly what you're currently doing, with the same output qualities, with a slightly better time, supply chain is awesome. But if you want exactly what you've always done, you're setting yourself up for failure. So change your mindset and adjust what you hear from the stage and in magazines. If you don't have those resources to initiate all the development work and the change in mindsets and processes and organizational structure, maybe for a small mid-sized enterprise, play it a little more passively and let that trickle down so that you can rapidly incorporate it into your business rather than trying to be one of the people that are making the change. Sorry, Graham or Robin.
Can I speak?
Yeah, Jim.
Go on.
Yeah, I think that we're all focusing very much on additive manufacturing. We look at all this as manufacturing processes, either now or in the future. But I think prototyping, we mustn't forget rapid prototyping. Rapid prototyping is a very, very important use for these technologies. It's very difficult to go into a company and talk to a company, look at the products, and certainly in my experience, looking at the products and then you're saying, well, you can use this machine to do that, but that requires that company to do a complete change of the core business just because we've gone in and said, well, we can do it. It's a lot easier to talk to people who have used these processes for prototyping first, because they understand the processes, they understand the materials, they understand what they can do with the machine, and then they seem to want to accept it more for the manufacturing side. So I don't think that, and it's all according to what business you're going to be using as well. I mean, as we stand at the moment, unless it's a very low volume manufacturer, these processes will not cover automotive. They can't compete with high volume manufacturing. You can. Low volume, your Ferraris, your Lamborghinis, things like that, then yes, that's good. But they have a major, major, major impact on the design cycle of I mean, we cut the design cycle at Land Rover down from, before we had the technologies, I think, from start to finish of a design was to production was about 3 years, roughly. You know, once we got these processes integrated into the design process, so everybody was using these technologies, that dropped to about 18 to 20 months. So they have a major, major impact on that. And I don't think we should forget the prototyping side.
Robin, anything to add on that?
Yeah, well, just a comment really on, are we setting ourselves up for a fall? I think there is risk here, and I think it's already been said. You know, this isn't necessarily easy to get into production, certainly for a high-performance part in aerospace or medical or some energy industry application. I think there's two parts. One is the journey, the business journey to develop the capability, whether it's in-house or out-house. And as Graham says, getting used to the technology through rapid prototyping and tooling is a very good route in. So I think there's a journey, and I think if a company thinks they can just kind of, oh, we'll just switch to this technology, sort of clone the design and go, they will be pretty disappointed in general. That's the one piece. So I think it's a journey that needs planning and understanding, and events like this, I think, really help do that. The other is the digital, picking up on Mark's earlier presentation about the digital thread, or as it's called in Germany, Industry 4.0, or maybe it's called like that around the world now, or the fourth industrial revolution. We're seeing additive manufacturing as probably the leading manufacturing technology to really get Industry 4 to work, and to spearhead the culture change, the disciplines that needs to go with it to make it all work. So we see additive manufacturing as a huge opportunity to help bring in the digital capability. And that's going to be really powerful for companies. And they can come in at whatever level they like. They can come in at the rapid prototyping level, the tooling level, or the end use, the series production part. But it's about seeing the whole digital thread, to use your term, and the design piece. You know, most people will tell us, we really want to go for a revolutionary design to get the full value of additive manufacturing. But that's a one-way step. If you go for the full benefit, change the design, you've made a system change, not just a component change. You've made a system change, and that system change you can't easily back out of. So I think the journey includes like for like, and it was being talked about in some of the seminars yesterday, where you do a like for like design in additive, and you know that you're not going to get the full benefit, but it's part of the journey of building the confidence. And I think that's the kind of approach that we're seeing companies starting to take, because they know that the journey isn't going to be that simple. But if they can get through it, they will be ahead like no others. It's a real ace. You know, it's an ace in the toolbox as a manufacturing capability, but it doesn't come easy.
No, absolutely, but well worth working for. Okay, we're actually getting quite close on time now. So so where do we go next, the panel? And each one of you has asked me not to make you try and predict the future. So I won't, but I will ask, when we return for RAPID plus TCT next year, what would you like to see more on the show floor? What do you think were the gaps, either probably in the technology that you've identified today that you'd like to see filled for next time? And I'll take whichever one of you has the quickest thought process on that.
I'll answer you by building on what I was just saying. I would like to see more of what the journey is about. More kind of the case study, whatever way this kind of exhibition and show can illustrate for companies to see. And I'm talking about end-use parts here. I'm not really thinking about rapid prototyping, possibly tooling. But what does the journey entail, and where does the digital piece come in? Yeah. That's what I think it would be really good if we could see a bit more of that.
Go ahead, Graham.
I think that I'd personally like to see, backing up what Robin said, I'd like to see more case studies to help people understand. I mean, somebody on the first day said about the GE nozzle, you know, what again? Yeah, but that's a really good case study, and we don't have any more case studies that will match. We probably, a lot of us have got them, but they don't share. And I'd like to see more sharing of those case studies to help drive this industry and help newcomers in the industry understand where it's going. They can all go down and look at the machines and everything, but hard case studies is really important. And and what Todd said earlier on about machine manufacturers, software manufacturers, material people, we're now seeing a lot of partnerships come together. I think that's a vital area, and I'd like to see a little bit more of that. And I'd also like to see some of the machine and material manufacturers and other software manufacturers talk to the industries, talk to aerospace, talk to automotive, talk to medical, and ask them what they want, rather than developing something and saying, look what we've done, can you use it? If you can, if they talk to people and they can develop things suitable for maybe even specialist applications, I think that's going to move this industry forward a lot.
Yeah, I would, Graham, I agree with your perspective on more sharing. I actually think that that's starting to change. I think that people are starting to talk a little bit more about the successes that they've had. I'd like to see more of that in the coming year, because my personal opinion is that there's a lot going on that is not getting talked about, and that to me speaks to the level of competitive advantage that the serious players see in deploying these kinds of capabilities, which is never going to replace traditional manufacturing fully. It's going to take its place beside traditional manufacturing methods. The other things that I'd like to see are more integration, so stories of how we, digital thread is obviously important to us. I think that if we, when we look at business cases and say, if you can just digitize yourself, if you can just get to that position where you are truly a model-based enterprise, whether you're a large organization or small, in preparation for deploying additive manufacturing, the other benefits that fall out of that process can be profound. And it's silly things like part proliferation, the ability to compare models, digital models in 3D, and realize that you've got 27 of the same part that just got drawn up because nobody went and looked at it, and the ability to take that out of the system, the ability to provide digital catalogs for sustainment. I don't think that you can ignore the impact that additive manufacturing can have on sustainment. Personally, I think that that is, irrespective of all the cool things you can do with design, clearly that's important. But the impact that this can have on sustainment operations is, I think, really profound. So I'd like to see integration, and I'd like to see more collaborations, because, as Todd, as you suggested, nobody can do this alone. And if people don't come together, whether that's around standards or whether that's around, hey, I'm going to put what I can do into the pot and you're going to put what you can do into the pot, and we're going to figure out how to realize this, whether that's bilaterally or through an organization like America Makes, I think that, I would like to see more of that, because we've got to bring a bunch of pieces together in order to really realize the value and the vision of what can happen here, which I think can be profound.
My answer to that question, it's a tough one, because you mentioned already, we have the front end, we have the back end, we have processes, we have materials, we're a little bit of the partnership. So I find it hard to answer, because I'm extremely pleased, very happy with what I saw at RAPID plus TCT 2010. So my expectations have been exceeded. So now you're turning around and asking me, what do I want to see next year? And I haven't been able to absorb what we have this year. But building off of the use case, the application stories, maybe one thing is bringing materials to the forefront, because applications are driven by materials, and where we have here, and maybe I'm talking to the exhibitors, usually it's, hey, we have a new material and here's a few specs, but connect the dots for me. Show me the use case for that material, show me what the benefit is, to bring materials to the forefront and to spotlight them, instead of slapping up, hey, we got this version of nylon, or we run PEEK, or we run this. Help me understand what the impact is on my business and really bring it to the fore.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think a nice way to finish there. We're right on time. Thank you all for your participation today, and thank you, of course, for your questions that have come in. There's a number of questions on materials that have come in. And as I said earlier, we have these guys here who are able to filter and package the information to help you get and stay connected to additive. So with the rest of your day-to-day, if all you do is seek out one of these chaps and ask one of the questions that you've texted in today, I think that will be a very good use of your time. And to continue the sharing theme, please go back to your organisations and make sure that you tell as many people about this as you can, because it is, as I said this morning, a full-time job keeping on top of all the updates that you're going to see. And these guys are experts in it, and although I'm not an expert in it, I wouldn't ever say that. It is my full-time job to keep on top of these things, and I still walk into the show floor and see things that I don't know. So next year, make sure you've got a couple of colleagues with you, because goodness knows what we're going to see next year. Thank you all very much again. Please give our panelists a round of applause.